Sorry, I just needed to turn the volume up there. Okay, hi everybody and welcome to this session. My name is Cheryl Lee and today we have a session on embodied breathing. So that is going to take in a little bit of an educational component, looking at the breathing mechanics, but also some relaxation and some visualization and imagery to help you to sort of move your focus of awareness and focus of attention around your body, because we know that awareness leads to change. But if you never take your attention somewhere, you're not going to get a change. This was actually my issue with mindfulness breathing, because a lot of mindfulness breath is simply, I love mindfulness, by the way. So this is not knocking mindfulness, but if you have some sort of breathing dysfunction, or you have anxiety or something like that, and you are instructed to just watch your breath, but don't do anything to change it, it's hard to know how to change it. It's hard to find a way into what can be different. You've noticed it, and then you've noticed it, and you can feel it, and then you notice it a little bit more, and that can be what happens sometimes for people. So yeah, a wandering change in the focus around the body is what we're going to do today. It's actually quite a long session, so it will lend itself to sort of, you know, being done in chunks. It is meant to be done all together as well, so that you get like a full appreciation of what's going on in your trunk when you breathe in. So before we go any further, my usual reminder. So first of all, can you fully commit to the session? So move your mobile phone out of the way, because when you're doing work with awareness, multitasking is really not an option. All right, it doesn't work. Our brains really are bad on multitasking. So even multitasking could be focusing on your body, but also visually looking around the room. I mean, that's bad enough, but if you've got, you know, a phone by the side of you and you're wanting to check stuff, it's just, you're not, your mind, your brain, your attention is not going to be where it should be, which is on your body, and the awareness of what's going on in your body, how it's feeling, and how it might change with different visualizations or putting your attention in different places. Okay, so that's the first thing. Second thing is, everything that I suggest is an invitation. If something does not feel nice to you or feels a little bit strange, you don't need to do it. You can go back to something that did work. All right, so there's going to be loads and loads of suggestions, and the idea is that it's kind of like a smorgasbord of things that you can go, oh wow, yeah, I'm going to try that. That worked for me, or that didn't quite work for me. But if I put my own gloss on it, I can maybe make it work. All right, so I want you to take away something useful from the session. Okay, so yeah, set up. All right, I'm going to show you a little video in a moment, but just so you know how to set up. This is my setup. I've got a new pillow, I love it, right? So this sort of dome shaped cream thing is lovely. It's from Aldi, and it was only about £5, but it's memory foam, and it's just a lovely shape to put at the back of the neck to really kind of support the back of the neck, so that the neck can be nice and lengthened, and you know, that airway can be kept long. So I'm using that a lot at the moment. Underneath that, I've got a wedge-shaped cushion to sort of lift my shoulders as well. Just so it's only thin, but just that nice little bit of lift is comfortable for me. I've got a sheepskin. I'm not doing somatic movement, so I don't need a hard floor for proprioception. So the sheepskin is nice and soft and warm and comfortable. The scarf laid out, it's just a thin scarf, and it's for use for kind of feeling around the rib cage. All right, so we're going to do some proprioceptive breathing, and just so you can feel the back of the rib cage, you're going to use a scarf if you have one. I also have those 1-inch Pilates cushions, one on either side. Those are for my wrists. It's a little thing that I like to do, but people do tend to like it. So, you know, maybe a ball or something to rest the wrists on, so you don't feel like you're having to open your palms or turn your palms down. Just hold and relax. And, you know, they're on a nice surface that is soft, but it's also warm. So having your hands on a cold floor can sometimes be a little bit of a distraction. What else have I got? I've got a rolled up blanket for underneath the ankles. That is comfortable for me. And I have the sort of half cylinder squashy tube thing. Got a proper name, but I can't remember. And that's for under the back of the knees. So that's my setup for relaxation. If you wanted to do relaxation on your side, for breath and relaxation, if you wanted to do it on your side, you could. If you wanted to do it sitting in the chair, you could. If you wanted to do it even lying on your front, you could, but you're going to have to sort of adjust the cues in your brain. Okay, so there we go with the setup. So let's see what's next. Yeah, so let's have a look at some breathing mechanics. So I'm going to share the screen with you in a moment. Share screen. There we go. Okay. So is that playing? There we go. All right, so this is what you're seeing here is an MRI. So it's a dynamic MRI, a moving MRI, and it's of respiration, breathing. And what you're seeing is down here we have the pelvic floor, right here, and here we have the diaphragm. And can you see how the diaphragm moves down? This is all the stomach contents here. And then we've got the pelvic floor here at the bottom. And can you see the amount of movement there is at the pelvic floor? So for a lot of people, it's an education that there is this kind of pistoning effect with the breath involving the diaphragm, which is a dome-shaped muscle, and the pelvic floor, which is also similar to the diaphragm, really, another set of domes that kind of hold up the abdominal contents and allow us to go to the loo. And, you know, there's that sort of reciprocal movement as we breathe, but there might not always be as much movement or excursion is the correct word, excursion of the diaphragm as possible, because we can get into breathing dysfunctions and we can get into spasming and muscle guarding and so on. So it's sometimes about re-establishing that connection, and that is part of what we're going to do today. Okay, and another video to show you. This is the rib cage. So looking at the diaphragm, it is this dome-shaped muscle around the rib cage, and just notice the height of the breastbone and how the rib cage kind of dips and is lower down at the sides. And at the sides of the body is often where the diaphragm is restricted and doesn't go into its full excursion. So we're seeing different views of the diaphragm here. And just bear in mind that we might not always be getting this amount of movement. Okay, so the diaphragm contracts downwards as we breathe in, and that leads to an expansion, a change in pressure and an expansion so that we can draw the air in, and then it relaxes back up to its dome. But it doesn't necessarily move equally in all parts, because again, we can get into breathing dysfunctions. you know, things like sleep apnea or, you know, surgeries, and if you've had a cough, long COVID, lots of things can affect our breathing. Right, no, we don't need him, so goodbye. Let's close those down. And okay, right, so I hope that was of interest and of use, and I'll be inviting you to recall what you've seen when you're lying on the floor. Okay, so just let's now go ahead and get comfortable. So go and lie in your chosen position, or sit or be in your chosen position to do this session. Get yourself nice and comfortable. And while you're getting comfortable, I'm just going to talk to you. So just relax where you are, get what you need, pad yourself up. And let me talk a little bit about using breath when we have stress and when we have anxiety, trauma, or pain, because you know, all of these things do affect our breathing. So with any of those things, if we've got pain, we tend to we guard and we breathe in a shallow way, and it's called apical breathing. So when we're not fully, like I mentioned when we looked at those images, we're not fully allowing the diaphragm to move in its full range, to go on its full excursion. And when that's not happening in this dome here, it's also not happening in the pelvic diaphragm either. And as we've seen, there's that reciprocal relationship between the diaphragm and the pelvic floor. But not only that, when we are shallow breathing, we tend to sort of pant more, and we can tend to use our mouth more. And, you know, this can perhaps happen at night as well. And with apical breathing, we're changing the chemistry, and we're becoming just a little bit more acidic, which is sending a message to the brain that, you know, there's a little bit of danger and there's a little bit of stress. And so the brain puts us on this higher alert, which does affect our breathing. So it's a kind of a cycle. So how do we break the cycle? Well, you know, we breathe 18 to 2,000, 1,800 to 2,000 breaths a day. All right. So, you know, that's a lot of breaths. We might as well make some of them matter, some of them, like, you know, kind of really count in terms of awareness and in terms of harnessing our control over our nervous system. So breathing is one of those things where it's happening anyway, whether we are aware of it or not. And we cannot be aware of it all the time, and nor should we try, because that's going into the territory of hypervigilance. When we're being hypervigilant, you know, we're sort of over monitoring, and that actually leads to a cycle of anxiety. So it's not a good idea to be trying to, you know, constantly be in control of your breathing. However, spending a good 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or several 5 or 10 minute slots a day to just really relax and check in with yourself. It's changing your biochemistry. It's sending different messages to the brain, ones that say it's okay, there's no problem, there's no danger, we're out of danger, so we can stop panting, we can relax muscles, we can divert the body's resources to recovery, rest and digest. So we're entering not the fight or flight, we're coming out of that, we're going into parasympathetic activation, rest, digest. And that's a little bit harder to get into than the fight flight. Fight flight is easy to trigger, and, you know, every time we're doing stuff, we're going to be in there, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It helps get stuff done, but we're not supposed to live there. We're not supposed to be there all the time. But, you know, our lives do kind of take over, and, you know, different to animals, our thoughts can trigger that stress response, that fight flight response. So just thinking about, you know, stuff you've got to do, a horrible conversation you've had, a horrible conversation you're going to have, those things can actually trigger this physiological cascade in us, that fight-flight response. And so we're living on adrenaline, we're living on cortisol, and slow, deep breathing is a way to change our body chemistry and to change into parasympathetic activation. So it's well worth learning the many different breathing strategies that you can do to access that, because, and there are a lot, there are many, and they're not all going to work for you as well, which is what I like to do with people, is to present a choice. You know, there's a range of different things that you can do to get yourself parasympathetic. All right then, so before we do anything else, let's check in with ourselves. Let's take a reading of how our bodies are feeling before we do any explorations with our breath. So if you're willing, close your eyes and just ask yourself, how am I feeling? Notice what comes up for you first, whether it's a sort of a physical thing, like a tension thing, or whether it's emotional, whether it's mental, whether it's a thought. And notice what's happening with your breath. That's that mindfulness of the breath I was talking about. So it's very difficult now. I've mentioned it. You might be drawn to, you know, something that's uncomfortable about your breathing. And that's okay. But, you know, is there something comfortable about your breathing as well? Is there something that feels easeful in your breath? Where is there movement in your body as you breathe? So if, with one hand on your chest, one hand on the belly, just notice, where is there movement? There's no right or wrong answers. It's just, you know, how are you breathing right now? So don't try to breathe more deeply. Don't try to create a deeper breath. Just notice what's there. And if you did try to do anything differently, you know, just notice what you did. So what is it that you've been told or taught that you should do when you're breathing? Because those things might not be necessarily working for you. Okay, did you try to take a deeper breath? And if so, where could you feel it? Did you raise your shoulders? Did you feel it around your neck and throat? So what are your beliefs about taking a deeper breath? Okay, just notice your own breath and how easy it is, how full it is, and it doesn't matter whether it feels really light. It's okay. However you're breathing is okay. And are you exerting yourself, or does it feel free and natural? Okay, notice your thoughts. What's going through your mind? Is your mind racing, or is there a sense of stillness? And how's your mood? Okay, so you can keep your eyes closed now as we go on a little bit of a journey of the body. So let's prepare our body and relax a bit and do some visualization and perhaps positioning. But for now, just breathe. The only cues I'm going to give you are slow, long, smooth in terms of your breath. Can you make your breath slower, longer, smoother in some way that is entirely comfortable to your system? And as you think about that slow, long, smooth breathing, give in to gravity. Allow your full weight to drop into the surface below you. Let the ground hold you. It's almost as if the ground is meeting you and taking all the weight, taking all the strain. Gently rest the tongue against the roof of your mouth. Lightly seal the lips, swallow and relax the throat. Allow your neck to soften and elongate. Does it feel okay to you to breathe gently in and out through the nose? Do so if you can. But if that's not comfortable for you today, you just breathe how you breathe. Be comfortable. Slower, longer, smoother, finding your own comfort and being very gentle with your breath. Let's soften the eyes. Allow them to drop back into the skull like two pools. Cheeks soften, nose softens. The tissues inside the nose, the nasal cavity in the back of the throat, the soft palate, the tongue, the throat, the ears, the jaw, the neck, the head. Allow your head to soften down, neck to elongate. Allow your shoulders to relax. Upper arms soften, forearms soften, fingers and hands soften. Upper back softens, mid back, lower back, pelvis and thighs, the knees, the feet, the toes. And then up the legs, all the tissues soften, pelvic floor softens, abdominals soften, chest, belly, throat, whole body. Imagine length from the navel to the crown and from the navel to the tailbone. So it's like you moving in opposite directions with the crown of the head and the tailbone. Crown and the tailbone expand in opposite directions every time you breathe in. So it's like you're getting longer. The neck lengthens at the back to open the airway and to clear the airway. And just make some adjustments there to find your optimal comfort. If you were to tip the chin upwards, you would shorten the back of the neck. That's possibly not very comfortable for a lot of people. Conversely, if you were to tip the chin right down, you might be overstretching the back of the neck. So it's finding that right Goldilocks point where the back of the neck feels long, where the airway feels free and open, and the head feels relaxed. Allow the collarbones to open and widen, and allow the hip bones to open and widen. And now do a slow smile. Take the corners of your mouth up towards the ears, but go slowly. Go slowly as you can with that smile, and then release your smile slowly. And completely relax, take a resting breath. And as you do it a second time, you've got the outside of the face where you've got this physical smile going on, but there's something going on the interior. There are tissues opening the inside. Can you feel those? Can you sense those? And can you sense that opening and widening inside of the throat? And then slowly let that go on the outside and let that go on the inside. Completely relax and take a resting breath. Do that one more time. That nice, slow smile. And that inner smile, that secret smile at the back of the throat. It's a nice tip to release. If you ever feel tight at the back of the throat, it's a nice release on the back of the throat. And then let that go slowly. Take a resting breath, soften the throat. Now, earlier I suggested to have the tongue on the roof of the mouth, tip of the tongue resting lightly against the front teeth. How does that feel? Does it feel comfortable? Does it feel like it gives support to the airway? And maybe just relax the tongue and see how it feels if you don't do that. And you decide what you prefer. I'm only making suggestions. And so now we move into the next part of the session, which is proprioception around the ribs. So I'm going to ask you to place your open hands on the front of your own rib cage. Now, you don't need to open your eyes, you don't need to see me. The rest of the session is going to be verbal cues. So place your hands on the front of your chest with the fingers spanning, kind of from the armpits to the collarbones. And just breathe and, think about that long, slow, smooth breath, longer, slower, smoother. But see if you can imagine a gentle movement upwards of the rib cage. So you're not doing this with physical force. You're not pushing out or puffing out your chest. Instead, you're just imagining a gentle expansion upwards towards the ceiling. But also try now upwards towards your face. So there's a physical lift upwards. It's almost as if somebody's put an umbrella up in your chest, and that there's that opening up and an expansion up towards the head, but also a gentle expansion towards the ceiling. And you might feel a kind of widening out towards the armpits as well. Now, lessen your effort. When people are first given an instruction, often there's a bit of kind of muscular force that comes with that. So see if you can lessen your effort and make it comfortable. Okay, so now let's take the hands over the chest, over the breast area, and imagine the same thing, movement and direction. So that gentle movement up towards the ceiling. Maybe you can feel it in the heel of your hand, a little bit outwards towards the upper arms, and maybe you can sense it a little bit up towards the face as well. Make it subtle. No strain, no over-efforting, no force. And then take the hands a little lower down to the rib crests. And as we saw earlier on in the images, you've got a higher, the rib crests are quite high at the breastbone, and then they sort of move further down towards the trunk. So your hands will feel that. And notice what movement you have there. And see if you can encourage movement there just by the hands being there. And if you can't feel any movement, then you can maybe press a little bit with the hands, but obviously just be careful here. So, no excessive force, but just maybe a little bit more pressure with your hands might encourage your brain to be able to sense that area a little more. And that's just happened with me as I'm talking to you. Now let's go to the sides of the body. So we're going to start in the armpits. Maybe you take the same side hand up towards the armpit, or you can cross over if you like, whatever's more comfortable for you. Maybe even use your scarf. So you've got your scarf, you're lying on your scarf, maybe you can use that. Pull up the ends of the scarf, maybe wrap them around you so you can feel the sides of your rib cage. And just imagine, visualize movement out towards your upper arm, the inside of your upper arm, out towards the walls of the room. And then take that scarf or your hands a little bit lower down, so you're in the sort of mid-range, just at the side of the chest and the side of the breasts. and feel that expansion out to the side. And it might also be a little rise as well towards the head. And then go to the next part, the lowest part of the sides of the ribs. Sense that expansion out to the side. Maybe there's a lift up towards the face. But allow it to be comfortable. And if you can't feel it, maybe you can press a little bit with your hands. And now let's sense into the back of the ribs. So you've got your scarf here. Let's begin at the upper part of the ribs. And, you know, maybe tighten the scarf towards the top of it so you can feel the upper part. And really sense as you breathe in that movement down towards the floor. And then you're pulling up with the scarf as well. So that's kind of increasing the capacity for your brain to feel what's going on there. And then maybe change your grip so that the focus is a little more now in the mid-back. Notice that movement down towards the floor, maybe slight widening outwards. And finally, around the base of the ribs at the back of the body. Okay, so we've visualized and we've felt into the ribs in little segments. Now let's visualize the whole thing. What you have every time you breathe in is a 360-degree expansion of the rib cage. So it's like, as I've said, an umbrella being put up. That's an image you could work with. Or perhaps another image I like to give people is a jellyfish. So have you seen a jellyfish propelling itself through water? There's that sort of squeezing together and doming, and then a widening, and then a squeezing together and widening. So have a look on YouTube at jellyfish, and you could have that image. And there's that 360-degree movement as well that you get with the jellyfish. So visualize this not as a cage. Cage is not a great word, is it? Because it's got that sense of solidity. So my favorite is balloon, right? So I like to think of a balloon. My balloon is a sort of soft pearly pink, and it fits perfectly inside of my chest cavity, and actually I extend it down to my trunk as well, as we'll see later. But for now it's just in your chest cavity because the ribs is our focus. And it does a gentle expansion in 360 degrees every time I breathe in. And I might use my hands sometimes with that image as well. So just spend a few moments now with your hands and with the image of the balloon, thinking of that 360-degree expansion, jellyfish or balloon or umbrella or a stack of umbrellas, or even if you chop a tree trunk and then you look at those rings inside a tree trunk, imagine if that were animated to kind of swell and expand and swell and expand. So that's a nice image as well. You might even like to think of a gas or something like that, a nice friendly gas inside of you that expands and then gently moves out away from your awareness, and then it expands as you breathe in. So with this balloon image, we're encouraging the brain to see the ribs as one area, that balloon expanding gently on the inhalation. And as you breathe out, let the air relax out passively. So don't try to blow out the air and force out the air. It's a minimal effort. Let it be passive. Sometimes I do teach blowing out the air like that, but we're not doing that today. We're just letting the air relax out passively. We're really trying to relax everything down that doesn't need to be gripping. So let's involve a little bit of knowledge of the mechanics as well. So recalling that, you know, when you breathe in, the diaphragm contracts down to expand the ribs as you breathe in. And as you passively relax the breath out, the diaphragm relaxes back up to a kind of dome shape. So just imagine that going on inside you, that diaphragm, again, 360 degrees. So it's contracting down and kind of flattening, and then it's relaxing and going back to that dome shape. So how are your neck and throat? Are they nice and soft, or are you overcooking the muscles around the neck and throat? Notice. Taking your attention back to the various parts of the ribs, that 360 degree balloon expansion, and then the air passively relaxing out. Long, light, slow, smooth. And then we're going to just pause for a minute or so and have a little break and wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, roll your legs and arms, maybe roll your neck. Do some kind of movement that gives you a little bit of release or comfort. Nip to the loo if you need to. And just notice the changes that has had to take your awareness around the different parts of the rib cage, and all the other visualization that we've done about expansion and lengthening and widening and softening. Okay, our next focus is the abdominal area. So let's go back to the mechanics of breathing and think about, you know, what happens with breath. That diaphragm contracts downwards and pushes down. As we saw on that MRI, the stomach contents have to move down as well, don't they? So you've got, you know, all of the contents of your abdomen, and with the diaphragm contracting down, there has to be some give. There isn't always some give. That MRI seemed to be of somebody who had, you know, good mechanics going on. But if you've had surgery, or you've been in pain and you've been muscle guarding, you might not necessarily be having that much movement, but you can encourage that movement a little bit more. So yeah, people talk about belly breathing, but I like to think of it as that it's not just the belly. If I think of the belly, I just think of the front bit. So let's take our hands and let's rub from the rib crests down to the pubic bone. So this is the kind of the belly area. Let's take our focus there first, because it's a little bit more obvious. And, you know, use that balloon image of the diaphragm contracting down. That balloon is opening in 360 degrees, pushing down. Soften the belly and see if you can get some more expansion in your balloon if you let the belly go. There's loads of reasons why you might be holding the belly. Yeah, you know, it could be you're just sucking in your belly, but you might have had had COVID. You might have been coughing, so you might have some spasming around here. Perhaps you're recovering from surgery. You know, perhaps you've got IBS or you know, constipation or pelvic floor issue going on, right? So lots and lots of reasons why you might be guarding. Perhaps you're in pain in your back, and so you're guarding around your whole trunk. So just encourage a little bit of softness. It is okay to let go. All right, we're not completely letting go and collapsing, we're just letting go So there can be that movement, but there is a recoil on the way back as well. So don't worry, you're not becoming weak if you soften and let go. I think that's a fear sometimes. Let's take our attention to the sides of the waist. Give it a rub from the rib crests to the hip crests and at the sides. And then take your attention back to the image of the balloon expanding and that contraction down, a fullness in the abdomen and also in the sides of the waist, but also a sort of a mental letting go here. It's okay and it's safe to let go. And then how about the back of the body? So give yourself a rub from the back of the ribs, along the spine, to the back of the pelvis. And, you know, if you've got back pain or if you've got pelvic pain, you've probably got a lot of stiffness and muscle guarding here. So you might actually feel a little bit of release just by rubbing in that area. Make sure your touch is kind and gentle. And then bring in the image of that balloon expanding in 360 degrees, diaphragm contracting down, and a fullness in 360 degrees in this trunk, waist, abdomen, back area. So think of the midsection as a cylinder. The diaphragm comes down, the cylinder moves down and out as well. Soften the sides of the body, soften the back of the body, soften the abdominal area. So the diaphragm and its movement can be accommodated fully without any resistance, without any pushback, without any muscle guarding. And just practice that for a few rounds. Think of that 360-degree breath and expansion. Maybe your balloon has grown a little bit, so it's down in your midsection now as well. Gentle swelling around the abdomen, the waist and the back, like a cylinder. Long, light, smooth and slow with your breath. And just take a small movement break now, wiggling your fingers, wiggling your toes. We're going to move on to the pelvic floor, but just have a movement break. Maybe you roll your legs, you roll your arms, roll your head. So now let's bring the pelvis and the pelvic floor into the equation. Okay, so we all have a pelvic floor, or more correctly, a pelvic diaphragm, and it's mirroring that diaphragm that we have at the base of the rib cage. And we've seen in action what that looks like when the piston action of breathing is working well, right? You've got quite a lot of movement there, and there's a lot of massage going on. You know, your lymph is flowing, your blood is flowing well, your muscles are moving well, the ribs are going in the full excursion, so you're getting lots of oxygen. And you know, things are working well. But as we know, that doesn't always happen, and you know, things can interrupt that. But we can bring it back with awareness and with attention. We can change things. Okay, so we know the diaphragm and the pelvic floor work together. We know that as you breathe in, the diaphragm contracts down, the abdominal viscera moves down, and the pelvic floor softens slightly to accommodate that. But then there is an elastic recoil on the out breath where the pelvic floor pushes back up. So what people can be frightened of at first with this is, oh gosh, if I let go of the pelvic floor, if I soften the pelvic floor so that I can allow that movement, that might be harmful, and you know, that might lead to weakness. All right, so just let me reassure you a little bit that often when people have issues around continence, and around, you know, kind of pelvic floor issues. It's not necessarily weakness. It can sometimes be muscle guarding that is the issue, and a kind of uneven tensioning, or perhaps not using pressures correctly, not having that pump going on. So actually, by reconnecting the brain with the pelvic floor in a gentle way, you're really helping to allow that system to kick back, right? And your pelvic floor is you know, it's elastic tissue. It has that recoil property. So just reconnecting there is going to be helpful for you. Okay, so be careful not to do any force. So my image for you is this. You're going to imagine on your in-breath that your pelvic floor is kind of softening a little bit. And a good image to help you to do this is to imagine flower buds at the openings in the pelvic floor. So, you know, the guys amongst us, you've got 2, and ladies, we've got 3. So, you know, at those openings in the pelvic floor, you have a little flower bud. As you breathe in, that flower bud gently begins to open. All right, I'm not going to say it fully flowers open, it begins to open. So that's encouraging just that little bit of movement. Don't worry if you can't feel any very much at the beginning, that's okay. With practice, your mind will get reconnected. And it really is an image you're not forcing. All right, so let me just be really clear about that. We're not bearing down, we're not forcing in any way. Okay, so as you breathe in, imagine that balloon expansion, flower buds opening at the pelvic floor, flower buds gently closing, that elastic recoil pushes the breath out. Keep doing that visualization. So you breathe in, balloon inhalation, diaphragm contracts down, cylinder of the abdomen releases, pelvic floor relaxes, buds open, buds close, air passively releases. Long, light, smooth, slow with your breath. Balloon inhalation, 360-degree expansion, diaphragm moves downwards, abdominal contents down, pelvic floor relaxes down, flower buds gently open, buds close and lift, and the air releases out passively. Long, light, slow, and smooth. I'll repeat that a few more times. Gentle expansion, balloon breath in. Pelvic floor softens, flower buds begin to open. Breathe out, there's that gentle recoil. Buds lift, air passively releases. Breathe in, gentle expansion in the entire trunk. Flower buds gently open. Flower buds close, recoil and lift, air passively releases. Long, light, slow, and smooth. Breathe in, gentle expansion in the entire trunk, all the way down to the pelvic floor. Flower buds gently open. Breathe out, gentle recoil. Flower buds close and lift, air passively releases. Continue with this visualization of the trunk. Now, maybe you want to imagine a balloon in the entire trunk that just expands. All right, whatever works best for you. Maybe the tree visualization, those rings around the tree. Maybe the jellyfish, but expand that to the entire trunk. But make the pelvic floor a piece of this movement, expansion and softening in every direction, 360 degrees, but upwards towards the throat and downwards towards the pelvic floor also. Long, light, slow, and smooth. Diaphragm and pelvic floor working together like a piston. like a sump pump, massaging the abdominal organs, keeping everything flowing. Long, light, slow, smooth breath. Let's add some visualization to see if we can relax even more in other parts of the body. Take that visualization to lengthening through the crown and the tailbone again. See how that feels. So as you breathe in, there's a vertical expansion all the way to the crown, all the way to the tailbone. Long, light, smooth, slow breath. And now as you breathe in, imagine the widening in the rib cage and in the collarbones, and also in the pelvis and in the hip bones. So we've got a vertical expansion from tail to crown, and we've got a horizontal expansion, as well as a 360-degree expansion. So there's expansion and spaciousness in the whole body, all directions. Take up space with your breath. Allow your breath to find new areas. And let's be playful. Maybe you can envision your legs becoming part of this balloon. All right, so this balloon you had in the chest that's now expanded to the trunk is now expanding down your legs. So you've got two balloons going down where your legs are. And then at the end of your legs, you've got 5 balloons where your 5 toes are. And as you breathe in, imagine the air going all the way down to your toes. I know this is not biologically possible, but you know, your awareness is a very powerful thing. So connecting awareness of your body, connecting that sense of spaciousness can affect your sensory awareness. Let's play with the arms. Let's make the arms into 2 tubes. With those fingers at the end, 5 tubes. Have you ever seen those inflatables that are sometimes at service stations where there's a long balloon that's got arms? Okay, so imagine the air just expands, doesn't it, into every part as you pump up something like that. So you've got the air that you're breathing in, expanding in your entire trunk in every direction, down the tubes of your legs and toes, down the tubes of your arms and fingers. Let's expand that into your head space as well, creating space, kind space. Expand it out of your crown and out of your ears. Let there be space and expansion in your whole body. Where are you sensing new areas, new awareness? Maybe something a little bit different. I like the phrase, be a chameleon, when you're doing movement work and breath exploration work. Notice change, notice difference, notice the changing pattern of awareness. And let's begin to orient ourselves back to the session. Where is there movement with your breath now, compared with the beginning of the session? Place one hand on your chest, the other hand on your abdomen, and sense where there's movement. Has anything changed? Do you have a different awareness of where movement can take place in your body as you breathe? How easy is your breath now? Are you exerting yourself? Or have you been able to relax your effort, change your effort? Where is there ease in your body? Where is there something new and curious? Notice your thoughts, what's going through your mind. Are your thoughts racing, or is there a sense of stillness? And what's your mood? And let's begin to wiggle the fingers, wiggle the toes. Let's take the fingers and begin to tap over the collarbones, over jaw, the cheeks, bridge of the nose, around the eyes, forehead, the top of the head, the sides of the head, the back of the neck, shoulders. Just feel those spots of sensation where your fingers were. Maybe do that again. Just look around to your room, focus on 3 objects around the room. And then begin to think about bringing yourself up into a standing position, but take your time. You might want to roll onto your side first. Just reorient yourself. Work out what's the easiest way to come up into standing. Are you going to go on all fours? Are you going to roll up? Are you going to use something at the side to ease on up? It doesn't matter how you get up. Just get up in the most comfortable way. And have a little walk around your room, wake yourself up. Look around the room, focus your eyes. Maybe bounce on your heels. It's a nice thing to do to help wake you up and stimulate you in a sensory way in the upright position. If I stand up and do it now, my head will be chopped off, so I'm going to stay here. So I hope you're feeling a little bit more awake. I hope that was a useful exploration for you and that you have had some interesting sensations, maybe a sense of relaxation and well-being, and something to play with. And I will see you next time. Thank you for joining me. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye.